I'm joined now, as I am each month, by our own Dr. Joe Sirven, Mayo neurologist and host of the WJCT program and podcast, What's Health Got to Do with It? He visits us for a monthly house call to take your calls and questions, also talk medical headlines. You can reach us at 904-549-2937, or you can email firstcoastconnect at wjct.org. Dr. Joe, thanks for being here.
Always a pleasure, and happy August.
Happy August. It's flying by.
Too fast, too quick, and so much going on.
There is no medical solution for that.
I wish there was, yes.
Well, let's start, if we can, by a headline. The Prince of Darkness, Ozzy Osbourne, recently felled by Parkinson's disease. You know, this is a disease that periodically comes into the headlines when a celebrity has it, but a lot of people do develop this. Tell us a little bit about when it manifests and what it looks like.
Yes, so Parkinson's disease is a neurodegenerative condition. So that means that there's a degeneration, a specific part of the brain that occurs, and it leads to this depletion of a specific neurotransmitter called dopamine. Now, we use dopamine for a lot of different things, but a lot of times it's very important in this condition for things like movement, smoothness of movement. So the way it presents is people talk about tremor, rigidity. Their face becomes almost like masked, and they have difficulty with walking. And so what occurs is that it presents typically in the typical age group is 50s to 60s, but there are early onset versions. Ozzy Osbourne had one of those, and it progresses. The good news, there are treatments for it, not a cure, but there are treatments, and it does last a long time, so you can try to manage those symptoms.
I have two questions about that. One, kind of what are the early warning signs that maybe people should look for or get tested if they're concerned? The other is that I only recently learned that there's sort of almost like a mental aspect to Parkinson's. It can cause behavioral changes. It can cause mood changes. Can you talk a little bit about that as well? Because that was totally news to me.
So the first thing is that in terms of the most characteristic thing that people will often come to us for are either a tremor, hand tremor, and it tends to be a specific tremor because not all tremors are Parkinson's. It's a resting tremor, a tremor that occurs when you are doing nothing. That's the biggest thing that sends someone to see someone like myself or one of my colleagues. As the degeneration occurs, you can see in some cases mood changes that occur. Oftentimes it can be related to some of the medications that are utilized because dopamine, this thing that you have a loss of, if you will, because of what's degenerating the brain, is also the same dopamine we talk about in addiction and getting the dopamine high. So when you get medications that supplement that, you can actually get into some of those behavioral effects as well.
Oh, interesting.
So with Mr. Osborne, which my condolences to his family and all, but he had this for 20 years or so. And he's also unusual in that he had one of these genetic mutations of Parkinson's. Most Parkinson's is not genetic, but he had one of those. He was in that small percentage that he had one of the mutations that kind of led him to have an early onset and a very long duration of his disease.
And it's interesting because, of course, he was able to perform throughout a lot of that despite this. But you're saying that, there's some genetic transmission of Parkinson's, which is what he had.
Small percentage, yeah.
But the other, what do we know about causes? I've heard that head injuries can be part of it. Exposure to pesticides could possibly be connected.
We're still trying to figure that out. Just literally the other day, researchers at Northwestern actually put out yet a very fascinating and tantalizing new finding out of a study that was done at Northwestern University, where they found that brains of individuals with Parkinson's and compared them to those who do not, that they uncovered that a virus that we all thought is assumed to be completely harmless and humanless, called pegivirus, was found in the samples of those brains and as well as their spinal fluid. What this means, we don't know yet, but it is another interesting way because that could open up a doorway to yet another line of inquiry and research and a very different treatment approach if that's what we find.
I wanna shift gears and talk about something that's been kind of like a we always seem to have these TikTok trends,
Yeah.
in
Oh,
medicine,
so many,
and I'm
so
sure
many.
that it's the bane of a lot of, doctors' existence, these days, but this one is these continuous glucose monitors, which are an essential, aid for people with diabetes, but have become almost a trend among people who do not have diabetes. What's going on?
So here's the deal. So in people who have diabetes, you need to know your blood sugar so you can give yourself either more food or insulin depending on where your blood sugar lies. And so it's revolutionized how you manage diabetes because instead of always having to prick your finger like you used to have to do, this thing you just put it in, it has a little needle like a patch and it samples the blood at all times. For diabetics, that's great. But in TikTok world and other avenues, people are using these to basically make a whole host of claims that I know my blood sugar and therefore I know what I need to do with it. Here's the reality: our blood sugar, it varies throughout the day from when you wake up to when you go to bed. When you eat something versus not eat something, we go through a lot of different variations. None of us know what to do with that data other than what you already know. When I'm hungry, that means my blood sugar probably is a little lower, and therefore I probably should eat. And if it's very high, maybe I shouldn't eat because you're not going to be hungry. In other words, I'm not sure what the add on value is to knowing something that you already know inherently. But a lot of people are jumping onto this because it's like, well, I know my blood sugar. Well, that's that's great, but I'm not sure what we know what to do with that data because it varies already throughout the day.
Do you think that, we're gonna continue to see this sort of pushed? I mean, I know that one of the influencers in the medical world, is the Surgeon General nominee, Casey Means, who has a company that is called Levels, and it kind of helps people track various elements of their health, exercise and sleep and nutrition. But it also this package that they sell can also include these continuous glucose monitors. If she is named the next Surgeon General. And we know that the Secretary of Health and Human Services, RFK, has also kind of said that this could be a tool for people to determine, healthy eating habits.
I'm not sure. I'd love to see the data and the research that shows me that that's the case. As I said, blood sugar goes up and down over the course of a given day. Where this could be useful if this is a spot check and when you are haven't eaten and your blood sugar is elevated persistently, maybe it'll help to diagnose diabetes. But outside of something like that, I'm not sure what data, what information that just normally living is going to that this is going to add on for us. So I'd love to see how that goes on. I would not be wanting to put myself to continuous glucose monitoring without a condition.
Do you just wish that people would listen to their doctors instead of TikTok when it comes to
I
things like
would
this?
love it if that number one they can get in to see their doctor, and number two listen to them when they get in there to have these type of discussions.
Well, we are talking to Dr. Joe Sirven, Mayo neurologist and host of the WJCT program, What's Health Got to Do with It? He joins us each month to talk medical headlines and to answer your medical calls and questions. And you can reach us at 904-549-2937. I do want to talk just briefly about a new IVF program, IVF like approach they tried in the UK. It's not something that's legal in the US, but it basically might prevent diseases from being transmitted. And we've got just about a minute.
I will just say that this was fairly landmark. This is a very specific condition for people who have mitochondrial conditions. Mitochondria is the energy cell, the energy battery of each cell. And for people who have mitochondrial problems genetically, there can be it's very devastating. In this particular case, they were able to literally have a fertilized egg, and then they pulled out the nucleus of that egg, put it into yet a third person's egg with normal mitochondria, and created this three-person item with the mitochondria, normal mitochondria from the mom of a donor, and then the rest of the person coming from the typical parent, a three-person way. And it has to do with the fact that mitochondrial diseases are inherited through the mom and not through typical genetics.
And this helped avoid some of these diseases being passed on.
It was reported in the New England Journal of Medicine, at least for the first set of kids that emerged from this at the age of 2, they showed no evidence, and that's huge. Of course, we have to see how life goes for the next decade to make sure that that kind of followed through.
Right. And important to note, it is currently not permitted in the United
Correct.
States. Dr. Joe, I do want to talk about this. It's kind of another TikTok trend. It
Okay.
has to do with these pouches that contain caffeine. I mean, we've heard a lot about these nicotine pouches that have become very popular among young people, including teenagers. But this is maybe the next little trend.
Yeah, so this is from the brainchild of the marketing people who brought us all of the good stuff
Jewel.
with Juul.
Yeah.
So this is what they've come up with. This is a caffeine pouch, and it's literally that, a little pouch, and you literally place it between your lip and your gum, and it soaks, and it basically this caffeine amount goes right into your system because your mucosa, the soft, wet tissue right there in that location, absorbs it, bypassing the digestive tract. So you have literally almost the closest thing to a direct caffeine boost that you could have short of having an IV.
Oh, my.
And you get 50 to 100 milligrams of this caffeine going right into you at that point. And that is an interesting caffeine boost. They put some B vitamins to give it some health element, but that's a amount of caffeine that you don't even have your liver or your GI tract to take out any of it, just going right into you. So that's a way of getting a quick boost should one want that.
And so when kids are using it, I mean, we remember a couple years ago when Panera pulled back these
Yep.
charged lemonades they were selling because there was ill effects, even a death or two, um, as I recall, from excessive caffeine.
Exactly. Just remember, like for kids, the maximum amount of caffeine in a given day is about 100 milligrams. So that maybe is 2 energy drinks or having 4 cups of coffee that's brewed. So when you have that in one pouch going right to you in a direct route, this is just asking for trouble. We have not seen yet things like a report like what happened with the Panera, but it's just a matter of time. This is one of those that we're going to have to wait and see how this kind of plays out. But just be mindful that although caffeine has its good sides, too much of anything can also have a downside. And sometimes those downsides are just plain serious. There's no antidote in the emergency room short of giving active charcoal for caffeine poisoning, should that occur.
And we do know that ER visits for caffeine, excessive caffeine have gone up in recent years. But I'm curious, I mean, and I'm guessing not much is known about the combination of that with these nicotine patches or pouches because some people are using both simultaneously.
This is one of those areas again that sadly we'll only know if something bad occurs and it really starts picking up. Having both a direct line of caffeine and nicotine, that just sounds like a recipe for a very bad problem.
I have a question from Susie in email. She's saying, I'm a type 2 diabetic, and one of the things I discovered that was surprising to me is that frequently monitoring my blood sugars, that oftentimes when I feel really hungry, I'm actually high in my glucose readings, not low as you would think. I wondered about that and why my body was giving me a false message, as it were.
So that's a great question, and it has to do with how insulin and sugar and diabetes work. So diabetes, there's two types. There's a type 1 diabetes, which is we're talking about insulin shortage, your body's not producing enough, and then type 2, which really is more about insulin resistance, that it is not working at the same level with the way that we would normally think. And so you can get a reading like that, as Susie just pointed out, that doesn't necessarily match how you feel. The second thing is that hunger feelings and your blood sugar don't match up at the exact same time. Sometimes when it's really low, sure, that matches up. but the opposite does not always. That feeling of satiety, when that which is I'm full, doesn't always match up to what your blood sugar is showing.
That is fascinating. And so, those monitors, when they're giving you a reading, are they necessarily telling you it's time to eat?
It is not, and that's the whole point. I'm not sure what you necessarily do with this. I mean, and maybe this is something that with time, as people come out with patterns, we will understand that because we didn't have this technology. But right now, literally using it at this moment, I don't know what to do with that information.
Well, we're gonna have to leave it there. You can hear Dr. Joe Sirven Saturdays at 4 on WJCT 89.9. You can also find his show, What's Health Got to Do with It, on your favorite podcast platform. Dr. Joe Sirven, thank you so much for being here.
Always a pleasure, Ann.
All right.